Music has served as a fundamental and transformative force throughout human history. More than mere entertainment, it acts as a universal language capable of transcending cultural boundaries and articulating the inexpressible. However, there exist forces that suppress our expression of self through music. Today, I tell a story of the suppression of a people and a voice at a time where individualism was stifled in the creation of an ultranationalist, racist, and totalitarian nation. Jazz is a product of historical and cultural experiences that characterized America in the 19th and 20th centuries. Its foundations were built upon the songs and musical expressions of the enslaved brought from Africa. They were forcibly removed from their homeland to work on the American plantations owned by wealthy Europeans, who suppressed them and made them to work from sunup to sundown. Their need to sing was driven by their woes. They turned to song to help cope with the hardship. Characterized by rhythmic drumming and intricate polyrhythms, work songs and field hollers with calls and responses helped to distract from the intense labor. This musical expression was not unique to one area nor one plantation. It occurred spontaneously throughout the Americas. However, the seed of jazz had not yet been planted. In the bustling city of New Orleans, for example, these songs could be heard in Congo Square every Sunday as the enslaved people were given the Lord's Day off. New Orleans was not like any other city, however. It was an especially diverse melting pot of cultures, with African, French, Spanish, Irish, and other peoples all living together alike. The European musical tradition of harmonic structures, time signatures, and even instrumentation soon made its way to Congo Square, with the African songs once only being sung and drummed, now being played by trumpets, snares, and tubas. It is now that the seed of jazz has broke through the earth, ready to grow and spread its leaves. While jazz gave a voice to enslaved Africans in America, at the same time Italians shared their stories through song. Italy was a nation undergoing significant social and political transformations in the late 19th and 20th centuries. Coming hot off the heels of the Risorgimento, where the many different duchies and kingdoms occupied the land, unified to form Italy, Italians were looking for a brand new national identity. The dominant musical form in Italy leading up to World War I was opera, a genre born on Italian soil during the Renaissance and early Baroque periods. Opera provided a shared cultural experience for many Italians. The grand narratives, passionate melodies, and often patriotic undertones found in the popular operas of composers like Verdi and Puccini resonated deeply with the population eager to embrace a collective Italian spirit. These shared experiences in the opera house, witnessing the stories of heroism, love, and struggle sung in their native tongue, helped to forge a sense of common identity that transcended regional differences. This common identity would be a key piece needed for the new nation, as in the spring of 1915, Italians were called to band together as Italy joined the fight against Austria-Hungary in World War I. Despite ultimately being on the winning side of World War I, the immense human cost, coupled with the failure to secure all the territorial gains promised in the Treaty of London, left many Italians feeling that their hard-fought victory was a mutilated one. A sense of disillusionment was growing within the Italian population. This disillusionment, coupled with economic hardship in the years following the end of the war, created fertile ground for radical ideologies. It was within this climate of social unrest and a yearning for strong leadership that the fascist movement, with its carefully crafted propaganda, began its ascent. Fascist rhetoric was first propagated nationally by the National Fascist Party, or the PNF, established in 1921 and resonated with many Italians who were seeking a strong leader and a clear path forward in the turbulent years following the First World War. This strong leader was found in a schoolteacher, politician, and journalist named Benito Mussolini, who became the head of the PNF. Under his reign, beginning with his appointment as Prime Minister following the March on Rome in October 1922, the core tenets of Italian fascism would begin to take form. Extreme nationalism, highlighting the nation over individuals with strength and unity. Racial purity through the glorification of ancient Rome. Conformity to the norms set by the government, and the principle of Italians first with strict media control were ideals characterized by Mussolini's leadership as Prime Minister. Soon, under Mussolini, Italy began to look different. Tall, bleak architecture loomed over Italians. Journals like Defense of Italian Race used pseudoscience to claim non-Italian races were impure. A secret police force was established to investigate and neutralize subversives, often anti-fascist, communist, and gay men and women. Not much escaped the fascists' grasp, not music, and especially not jazz. Jazz was deemed degenerate by the Italian fascist regime. Its very foundation was built upon the voices and lived experiences of marginalized black communities, a heritage viewed as a direct threat to their ideal of a pure, white Italian race. At its core, jazz celebrates individual expression and improvisation, finding a strength and beauty in the unique voices and skills of each player coming together. This concept directly clashes with fascism's emphasis on strength and unity, promoting conformity by suppressing individuals' dreams with the goal of creating legions of ideal soldiers, mothers, and workers. Embracing diverse musical influences from African, European, and later Spanish and Cuban traditions, jazz stood in stark contrast to Italian fascism's fervent goal of creating a singular Italian cultural identity through the aggressive suppression of foreign influences, both economically and culturally. As such, the fundamental principles of jazz were in direct opposition to fascism, making the Italian government's suppression of its spread entirely understandable. Through their control over mass media, the fascist regime suppressed jazz. Rise radio waves instead played operatic music, however, solely those songs that aligned with fascist themes of national glory and heroism. These pieces, along with pro-fascist songs and anthems, could be heard regularly both on the radio and in the streets as millions of Italians sung their melodies. Giovinezza, the most popular anthem of them all, portrayed themes of a rebirth of a new Italy through a great rejuvenator, Benito Mussolini. Jazz, being music from an oppressed people, could not be fully suppressed. Fascist resistance efforts in Italy and Germany alike managed to continue jazz's spread. In black markets, jazz albums were smuggled to Europe and exchanged. Hot clubs operated in informal gatherings, and the music of Louis Armstrong, Sidney Bechet, and the like could be heard. In Germany, the Swingjugend, or swing youth, were young people who openly rebelled against Nazi fascist ideology by dressing like Americans and embracing swing music in secret dances and gatherings. Towards the end of World War II, American forces, including African American soldiers, liberated Europe from Axis powers. Jazz arrived in the formerly occupied cities and towns, acting as a vibrant celebration of American ideals. These newly liberated lands provided fertile ground for the seeds of jazz, and soon Europeans began to experiment with the genre. The introduction of jazz through the context of liberation during World War II proved mutually beneficial for both African Americans and Europeans. Black soldiers fought alongside white soldiers and were hailed as heroes by the liberated population, while these populations in turn found jazz as a powerful force for self-expression. In the years following World War II, America would continue to send jazz musicians overseas to Europe in the Jazz Ambassadors program. These diplomatic missions acted to spread American culture and build goodwill and diplomatic ties. Famous jazz musicians like Dizzy Gillespie, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and more would have their music ring in music halls throughout Europe. In 1963, Art Blakey and his jazz messengers even performed at the San Remo Music Festival. Jazz music reached people of all kinds, all ages, and all races. Italian jazz musicians would find commercial success in Italy, and soon their compositions would make it overseas and back to America. Most famously, Volare won the San Remo Music Festival and placed third overall in the 1958 Eurovision, has become a jazz standard. Most notably, however, is the story of jazz musician Romano Fol. Romano was born on the 26th of September in 1927. He started playing piano as a child, sticking mainly with classical pieces while accompanying his father Benito, who played the violin. However, World War II and its outcome hit Romano's family hard. Fol turned to jazz to express himself, and he found himself on stage at music festivals across Italy, as well as a sideman when jazz musicians from America visited Italy. After national success with a quartet, Fol put together an all-star cast in the early 60s, as well as stop using a pseudonym. Romano Mussolini's All-Stars went on to win Italian Critics Award, propelling him to international fame and infamy. Soon the Mussolini name was heard again throughout Europe, however this time not in the context of World War II, but as a touring jazz pianist. Romano played with some of the best American jazz musicians, including Chet Baker, Lionel Hampton, and the legendary Dizzy Gillespie. Born from the voices of the marginalized, jazz champions improvisation and individual expression, directly challenging fascism's demand for absolute unity and the suppression of personal identity in service of the state. Where fascism sought to impose a singular, pure national culture and silence dissent, jazz thrived on the fusion of diverse traditions and the vibrant interplay of unique voices. The very essence of jazz, its spontaneous creativity, its creation of individual freedom within a collective, and its roots in the struggle against oppression, stand as a powerful and enduring antithesis to the core tenets of fascism. Its eventual embrace a testament to the irrepressible human spirit and liberating power of artistic expression. Thank you for watching.